The morning rush at Sunshine Cafe had begun like any other. The small bell above the door chimed constantly as people hurried in, desperate for their first cup of coffee before heading to work. Behind the counter, Maya Santos moved with practiced efficiency. Her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, her movements quick but never rushed. 2 lattes and a blueberry muffin for table 5, she called out, sliding the order slip to the barista while simultaneously wiping down the counter. Her voice barely rose above the buzz of conversation, yet somehow always reached its target. The cafe owner, Mr. Lee, nodded approvingly from his spot by the register. In the 3 years Maya had worked there, she had never been late, never called in sick, and never complained about taking extra shifts. To him, she was the perfect employee. Reliable, hardworking, and invisible when she needed to be. "Can I get another refill?" A businessman held up his empty mug without looking up from his laptop. Maya nodded, though he didn't see it, and filled his cup with fresh coffee. He muttered a distracted thanks without meeting her eyes. That was how most customers saw her, if they saw her at all. She was the hand that delivered their food, the voice that took their orders, the shadow that cleared away their empty plates. To them, she existed only as a function, not as a person with dreams and a story of her own. "Order up for table 9, the cook shouted from the kitchen window. Maya grabbed the plates, balancing them expertly along her arm before weaving through the crowded tables. She set down a stack of pancakes in front of a young boy whose eyes widened at the sight. "Wow, thank you," he exclaimed, looking directly at her with unfiltered excitement. Maya smiled, a genuine one that reached her eyes. "Enjoy your breakfast, buddy." These small moments of connection were rare but treasured breaks in the routine of her day. Her co-worker Ricky slid past her with a tray of dirty dishes. Ms. Chen called. "She's bringing in that book club again tonight. 15 people, maybe more." Maya nodded. The evening book club meant she'd be staying late again, but the extra tips would help with this month's rent. "I can handle it. You should go home to your kids." Ricky shot her a grateful look. "You're a lifesaver, Maya. I swear I'll cover for you next weekend." They both knew he probably couldn't, really, with 3 young children at home. But Maya just nodded again. That was her role. Here too, the one who stayed late, who picked up the slack, who never complained. The morning rush gradually thinned out as the clock ticked toward 10. Maya refilled salt shakers and wiped down empty tables, her movements automatic after years of the same routine. The radio played softly in the background, a classical piece that made her fingers twitch slightly as she worked. "That's Chopin," an elderly woman remarked, noticing Maya's subtle reaction to the music. She was a regular, always ordering the same thing, Earl Grey tea with a splash of milk and a slice of toast. Maya paused, surprised to be noticed. "Nocturne in E-flat major," she said quietly. "It's beautiful." The woman's eyebrows rose slightly. "You know your classical music?" "A little," Maya admitted, then quickly moved on to the next table, uncomfortable with the attention. The truth was, she knew more than a little. Music had been her first language, taught by her grandmother who had once played in a symphony orchestra back in the Philippines. But that was another life, before her grandmother passed away, before her father left, before her mother had to work 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. The rest of her shift passed in the familiar rhythm of orders taken, food delivered, tables cleared. By 3 o'clock her feet ached and her back was stiff, but she still had hours to go before she could head home. During a brief lull, Maya slipped into the back room for her lunch break. She unwrapped the sandwich she'd made that morning and checked her phone. 2 messages from her sister Lily. "Got an A on my science project. Mrs. Henderson says I should consider entering the state competition." The second message was less enthusiastic. "Mom's picking up another night shift at the hospital. Can you bring home dinner?" Maya texted back quickly. "That's amazing, so proud of you, smarty pants. And yes to dinner. How about that pasta you liked?" Lily was only 16, but already showing promise that Maya had never had the chance to explore. She was determined that her sister would have opportunities she hadn't, like attending college, without crushing debt or being able to pursue her passions without sacrificing them for survival. As she finished her sandwich, Maya pulled up the community college website on her phone. She had been saving for 2 years to take some classes, maybe in business management. The dream of music school had died long ago. That path required money for lessons, instruments, and time to practice, none of which she had. But perhaps with a business degree she could someday manage a cafe of her own instead of just working in one. The pricing for next semester's classes made her wince. Even with her savings, she'd barely afford one course. She closed the browser with a sigh and returned to work. The afternoon crowd was different from the morning rush. Retirees lingering over coffee, students with textbooks spread across tables, remote workers tapping away at laptops. Maya moved among them like a ghost, present but unseen. "Hey, Maya," Ricky called from behind the counter. "Mr. Lee wants the piano cleaned before the book club arrives. Says it's gathering dust." Maya glanced at the upright piano in the corner of the cafe. It was mostly decorative, part of the cozy vintage aesthetic Mr. Lee had cultivated. Occasionally, a customer would play a few notes, usually children banging randomly on the keys until their parents stopped them. "Sure, I'll do it now." She grabbed cleaning supplies and headed to the corner. The piano was indeed dusty, its dark wood dulled by a fine layer of neglect. Maya sprayed cleaner onto a cloth and began wiping it down carefully, treating the instrument with a reverence that would have seemed strange to anyone watching. When she reached the keys hidden beneath a wooden cover, she hesitated. Glancing around to make sure no one was paying attention, she lifted the cover and revealed the black and white keys beneath. They were slightly yellowed with age, but still beautiful to her eyes. Her fingers hovered over them, not quite touching. In her mind, she could hear the music they could make, had once made, years ago, when her grandmother placed her small hands on a similar set of keys and showed her how to bring forth sound that could make people laugh or cry. "You playing or cleaning?" Mr. Lee's voice broke through her reverie. Maya quickly closed the cover. "Just cleaning, sir." He nodded, already turning away. "Book club will be here in an hour. Make sure the large table is ready." "Yes, sir." She finished dusting the piano, giving it one last longing look before returning to her other duties. By 6 o'clock, the book club had arrived, filling the cafe with animated discussions about character development and plot twists. Maya served them efficiently, remembering who ordered what, making recommendations when asked. None of them looked at her twice. At 8, as she was clearing their plates, she overheard Miss Chen mention the music conservatory downtown. "My friend works in admissions there," she was saying. "They're holding auditions next month for their scholarship program. Apparently, they're specifically looking for undiscovered talent this year." "How wonderful," another woman replied. "Giving opportunities to those who might not otherwise have access to such education." Maya nearly dropped the stack of plates she was carrying. The conservatory. She'd passed its impressive building hundreds of times, sometimes stopping to listen to the music drifting from its open windows during summer evenings. It had always seemed as distant and unreachable as the moon. She finished her shift at 9:30, counting her tips as she prepared to leave. $43. Not bad for a Tuesday. Combined with the night's wages, it would be enough for groceries and maybe a small contribution to her meager savings. The night air was cool as Maya walked to the bus stop. The city hummed around her, lights twinkling in high-rise windows. 3 blocks from the cafe, she passed the conservatory building. Unlike during the day, when it buzzed with activity, it now stood quiet and stately, its windows dark except for a single light in a top-floor room. Maya paused, drawn to that solitary light. Was it a student practicing late? A professor grading assignments? Someone like her, who could only find time for their passion when the rest of the world slept? For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine, walking through those grand doors, sitting at a real piano, not a dusty cafe decoration, but a gleaming concert grand. Her fingers would remember, even after all these years. The music was still inside her, waiting. The fantasy dissolved as her bus approached. With one last glance at the conservatory, Maya boarded the bus that would take her back to the small apartment she shared with her mother and sister in a neighborhood far removed from the gleaming downtown buildings. Home was a 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a weathered building. Maya unlocked the door quietly, knowing her mother would be sleeping before her night shift at the hospital. "You're back." Lily looked up from her homework spread across the coffee table. At 16, she had their mother's eyes and their father's quick smile. With pasta, as promised. Maya held up the takeout bag. "How's the homework going?" "Chemistry is trying to kill me, but I'm fighting back." Lily closed her textbook and helped clear space for their late dinner. "How was work?" "Same as always." Maya didn't mention the conservatory or the scholarship. Dreams were dangerous things in their household. They had learned that lesson when their father chased his to another city, another family leaving them behind. As they ate, Lily chattered about school, friends, and the science competition her teacher wanted her to enter. Maya listened, genuinely interested in her sister's day, offering advice when asked. After dinner, while Lily returned to her homework, Maya quietly washed the dishes. The apartment was small but clean, with furniture that had seen better days but was well cared for. Photos lined one wall: Maya's graduation, Lily's science fair wins, their mother in her nurse's uniform. A life built from hard work and sacrifice. In the corner of the living room sat their most treasured possession, an electric keyboard, old and missing 2 keys, that Maya had found at a garage sale years ago. She'd spent 3 months of tips to buy it for Lily's 10th birthday, hoping her sister might share the love of music their grandmother had instilled in Maya. Lily had tried, but eventually lost interest. Now the keyboard sat mostly unused, covered with a cloth to protect it from dust. When the dishes were done and Lily had gone to bed, Maya carefully removed the cloth. She plugged in headphones so she wouldn't disturb anyone and turned the power on. The small screen lit up weakly, but it still worked. Her fingers found their places on the keys from memory. Even with 2 keys missing, she could still play the Chopin piece from earlier. Her eyes closed as she played, her body swaying slightly with the music only she could hear. For these few stolen moments at the end of a long day, Maya wasn't just a waitress. She was what she had always been in her heart, a musician with stories to tell through melodies instead of words. Tomorrow would bring another day of orders and tips and invisible service, but tonight, in the quiet of her small apartment, she remembered who she really was. 2 weeks had passed since Maya overheard the book club's conversation about the conservatory scholarship. Though she tried to push it from her mind, the thought followed her everywhere. While serving coffee, riding the bus, lying awake at night staring at the ceiling. "Order for table 12, the cook called out, snapping Maya back to reality. She blinked, realizing she'd been standing motionless by the counter, lost in thought. A few customers were watching her with mild curiosity. "Sorry," she murmured, grabbing the plates and hurrying to deliver them. Mr. Lee frowned as she passed. "Everything okay? You seem distracted today." "I'm fine," she assured him, pasting on her professional smile. "Just a little tired." The truth was more complicated. Last night, after her mother and sister had gone to bed, Maya had done something she hadn't dared in years. She'd looked up the conservatory's website on her phone. The scholarship application had stared back at her from the screen, both invitation and challenge. Applicants needed to submit a video performing 2 contrasting pieces, followed by live auditions for those who made the first cut. The deadline was just 3 weeks away. "Maya, table 3 needs their check," Ricky called out. She nodded and hurried over, apologizing to the waiting customers. They barely acknowledged her as she placed the bill on their table. The lunch rush kept her too busy for daydreaming. But as afternoon approached and the cafe quieted, her mind drifted again to the piano in the corner. It wasn't a great instrument, nowhere near the quality of what they'd have at the conservatory, but it was real. Unlike her broken keyboard at home, it had all its keys. "Hey, can I get a refill?" A customer at the counter held out his mug, pulling Maya from her thoughts. Of course. She filled his cup, noticing it was the same businessman who never looked up from his laptop. Today, though, he glanced at her name tag. "Thanks, Maya." The simple acknowledgement of her name startled her. "You're welcome," she replied, unable to hide her surprise. He smiled slightly. "I've been coming here for months. Figured I should at least know who makes the coffee that keeps me functioning." She returned the smile, a genuine one. "That's nice to hear. I'm Thomas, by the way." He extended his hand, and she shook it quickly before another customer called for her attention. The small interaction stayed with her throughout the afternoon. "It wasn't much. Just a brief moment of being seen, but it felt significant somehow, like a tiny crack in the invisible wall between her and the world she served. As closing time approached, Mr. Lee called her into his office. The small room was cluttered with invoices and schedules, the desk barely visible beneath stacks of papers. "Maya, I wanted to let you know about an event we're hosting next weekend," he said, searching through a pile until he found what he was looking for, a private party. Some rich guy rented the whole place for his wife's birthday. "They're paying extra for us to stay open late." Maya nodded. "Private events meant better tips even if they ran long. I can work it." "Good. They've requested specific things. Fancy appetizers, champagne, and..." He checked the paper. "Live piano music." Maya's heart skipped. "Live piano?" "Yeah," Mr. Lee sighed. "I've hired a guy who plays at weddings and stuff. He's charging an arm and a leg, but what can you do? Rich people and their parties." He handed her a flyer. "Here's the details. Saturday night starts at 7. Maya took the paper, her eyes lingering on the words. "Live piano performance by Antonio Russo." Something twisted in her stomach, disappointment mixed with longing. "I'll be here," she said quietly. The rest of the week passed in a blur of routine shifts. Maya took extra hours whenever possible, partly for the money but also to keep her mind occupied. The piano in the corner seemed to watch her as she worked, a silent reminder of dreams deferred. At home, she found herself picking up the cloth covering the old keyboard more often, playing with headphones late into the night. Her fingers were stiff at first, stumbling over the simplest passages, but muscle memory gradually returned. The missing keys forced her to adapt to imagine the notes that should be there. On Friday night, Lily caught her playing. "I haven't heard you play in ages," her sister said, standing in the doorway of their shared bedroom. That was beautiful. Maya quickly switched off the keyboard. "Did I wake you?" "I'm sorry." "No, I was studying." Lily sat on the edge of the bed. "Why did you stop playing?" "You used to play all the time when I was little." Maya shrugged, uncomfortable with the question. Life got busy. Bills needed paying. "You should play more." Lily's voice was soft but insistent. "You look different when you play, more like yourself." The observation was too close to the truth. Maya changed the subject. "How's the science project coming along?" Lily allowed the deflection, launching into an explanation of her experiment. But later, as Maya lay awake, her sister's words echoed in her mind. "More like yourself." Was that even possible anymore? After years of being just a waitress, just a sister, just a daughter trying to help keep their family afloat? Saturday arrived with unexpected chaos. Maya's morning bus broke down, making her 10 minutes late. Her first tardiness in 3 years. The cafe was busier than usual, with a tour group taking up half the tables. And just before the lunch rush, Mr. Lee received a call that left him pacing and agitated. "Problem?" Maya asked as she passed him with a tray of dirty dishes. "The piano guy canceled," he said, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Some emergency. The party's in 6 hours and they specifically requested live music." He looked at his phone. "I'm calling around, but on a Saturday night finding someone last minute." Maya froze, dishes balanced precariously on her arm. "What kind of music do they want?" Mr. Lee waved dismissively. "Classical stuff, I think. Background music for rich people to ignore while they drink expensive champagne." He sighed heavily. "Mrs. Wong will be furious if I can't deliver what her husband paid for." Maya set down the dishes and took a deep breath. "I could play." Mr. Lee looked up from his phone, eyebrows raised. "You?" "Yes." Her voice was steadier than she felt. "I know classical piano." He stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. "You're serious. Since when do you play piano?" "Since I was a child," she said. "My grandmother taught me." Mr. Lee looked skeptical. "This isn't just background music at a family dinner, Maya. These are important clients. They're expecting a professional." The doubt in his voice stung but also sparked something in her, a flicker of the pride her grandmother had instilled. "Let me show you," she said. The cafe had quieted after the lunch rush. A few customers lingered over coffee, but most tables were empty. Maya walked to the piano with Mr. Lee following, curious despite his skepticism. She sat at the bench, adjusting it slightly. The keys were dusty again. No one had touched them since she cleaned them weeks ago. For a moment, doubt crept in. It had been years since she played on a real piano, in front of anyone. What if she failed? But then she placed her fingers on the keys and began to play. She started with Debussy's Clair de Lune, gentle and familiar, the notes flowing like water beneath her fingers. The cafe fell silent around her, but Maya barely noticed. Her world narrowed to the keyboard, to the music that had lived inside her for so long without release. When she finished, she looked up to find Mr. Lee staring at her, mouth slightly open. Behind him, customers had paused mid-conversation, coffee cups suspended in air. That was... Mr. Lee struggled for words. Why didn't you ever say anything? Maya shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. You never asked. A smattering of applause broke out from the customers. An elderly man at a nearby table called out, "Play another!" Encouraged, Maya turned back to the keys. This time she chose something livelier, a Chopin waltz that her grandmother had loved. Her confidence grew with each measure, her body swaying with the rhythm, her face transformed by the joy of the music. When the final notes faded, the cafe erupted in genuine applause. Maya blushed, unused to attention, especially for something so personal. Mr. Lee shook his head in disbelief. "You're hired for tonight," he said. "I'll pay you what I was going to pay the other guy." "Really?" Maya hadn't expected that. "Yes, really." He checked his watch. "Go home, rest, and come back at 6. Wear something nice, not your uniform." Maya nodded, still stunned by the turn of events. As she gathered her things to leave, customers stopped her to compliment her playing. The businessman, Thomas, caught her eye from his usual spot and gave her a thumbs up. "That was incredible," he said as she passed. "You've been hiding some serious talent." "Thank you," she replied, the words feeling unfamiliar in her mouth. She wasn't used to being thanked. She was usually the one doing the thanking. The bus ride home was a blur. Maya's mind raced with music selections for the evening. Mentally sorting through pieces she could still play well. She would need hours of practice, especially after so many years of playing on a subpar keyboard with missing keys. At home, she found Lily sprawled on the couch, textbooks surrounding her. "You're home early," her sister noted, looking up. "I need to practice," Maya said, heading straight for the keyboard. "I'm playing piano at a private event tonight." Lily sat up, textbook sliding to the floor.
"What, really?"
"Like for money?" "Yes, for money." Maya couldn't keep the excitement from her voice. "The hired pianist canceled, and Mr. Lee is letting me fill in." "That's amazing." Lily jumped up to hug her. "Mom's going to flip when she hears." For the next few hours, Maya practiced while Lily helped choose an outfit. They settled on a simple black dress their mother had worn to a cousin's wedding, slightly loose on Maya's smaller frame, but elegant enough for the occasion. "You look beautiful," Lily said as Maya twirled in front of their small mirror, like a real pianist. Maya caught her reflection. The dress, her hair pulled back neatly, a spark in her eyes she hadn't seen in years. For the first time in a long time, she saw herself as more than just a waitress. Tonight she would be a musician. As the sun began to set, she gathered her sheet music and prepared to leave. Lily hugged her tightly at the door. "Knock 'em dead, sis," she whispered. "Show them who you really are." Maya nodded, too nervous for words. As she walked to the bus stop, her heart pounded with equal parts fear and excitement. Tonight could change everything, or it could be just one special evening before returning to normal life. Either way, for a few hours, she would exist as more than just a waitress. She would be seen. She would be heard. She clutched her music to her chest and boarded the bus, ready to step into a spotlight she never expected to find. Maya arrived at the cafe an hour before the party was set to begin. The familiar space had been transformed. White tablecloths covered the usually bare tables, tiny candles flickered in glass holders, and strings of soft lights hung from the ceiling. The everyday cafe had become something magical. "There you are," Mr. Lee called from behind the counter where he was arranging champagne flutes. He paused when he saw her eyebrows rising slightly. "You look different." Maya smoothed the borrowed dress self-consciously. Without her usual uniform and with her hair styled by Lily, she barely recognized herself. "Is it okay?" "More than okay," he assured her. "Very professional. The piano's been tuned this afternoon, by the way. Cost me extra, but worth it." Maya's eyes widened. "You had it tuned for me?" He shrugged, embarrassed by her gratitude. "For the clients. Can't have a fancy party with an out-of-tune piano." She nodded, but the gesture wasn't lost on her. Mr. Lee had never spent money on the piano before, It had always been just decoration. Now it stood in the corner, polished to a shine, the bench positioned perfectly. "I should warm up," she said, moving toward the instrument with a mixture of nervousness and longing. "Make it quick. Guests arrive in 45 minutes." Mr. Lee turned back to his preparations, but Maya caught him glancing over occasionally as she settled at the piano. The keys felt different under her fingers, more responsive, the action smoother than before. She began with simple scales, reacquainting herself with the instrument's voice. It wasn't a concert grand, but compared to her broken keyboard at home, it was wonderful. Ricky arrived, dressed in black pants and a white shirt instead of his usual uniform. He whistled when he saw Maya. "Look at you! Never would have guessed you were hiding under that apron all this time." Maya smiled despite her nerves. "I'm still me." "Yeah, but like fancy you." He gestured to the piano. "And apparently you're some kind of musical genius?" "Hardly," she laughed, the sound surprising her. When was the last time she had laughed at work? "Just someone who used to play." Other staff members arrived, all dressed more formally than usual. They cast curious glances at Maya, whispering among themselves. She pretended not to notice, focusing instead on her practice, running through passages of the pieces she planned to play. At 6:45, Mr. Lee gathered everyone for final instructions. "Remember, these are important people. Best behavior, professional service. Maya," he turned to her, "you'll play background music while people arrive and during dinner." Mrs. Wong requested a special performance for the birthday toast at 9 o'clock, something impressive. Maya nodded, trying to ignore the flutter of panic in her chest. Background music was one thing, but a featured performance? "What should I play for the toast?" "Something that shows what you can do," Mr. Lee said. "Something that will make them remember this night." No pressure, Maya thought wryly. At 7 o'clock sharp, the first guests arrived. They were unlike the cafe's usual customers. Women in elegant dresses and men in expensive suits, their jewelry catching the light as they moved. Maya sat at the piano, beginning a gentle Beethoven sonata as they entered. Most guests barely glanced her way, focused on greeting their hosts and accepting champagne from trays offered by Ricky and the other servers. Maya was used to being invisible, so this didn't bother her. The music flowed from her fingers, creating an atmosphere rather than demanding attention. As the room filled, Maya transitioned smoothly between pieces, keeping the mood light and festive. From her corner, she watched the party unfold. Laughter, animated conversations, the clink of glasses. It was like viewing a different world, one she served but never participated in. An hour into the event, during a break between pieces, Maya noticed a woman watching her. Unlike the other guests who were dressed in bright colors and flashy styles, this woman wore a simple gray suit. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, silver strands catching the light. Something about her posture, straight-backed, attentive, made Maya sit up straighter. When their eyes met, the woman smiled and approached the piano. "That was Debussy, wasn't it?" she asked. "Beautifully played," Maya nodded. "Thank you. Reverie. One of my favorites." The woman extended her hand. "I'm Professor Chen. I teach at the conservatory downtown." Maya's heart seemed to stop, then restart at double speed. The conservatory. The scholarship. The words from the book club conversation came rushing back. "Maya Santos," she managed, shaking the professor's hand. I work here." "You work here," Professor Chen repeated with a small smile. "And you play piano. Quite well, I might add." Before Maya could respond, Mrs. Wong appeared at the professor's side, champagne glass in hand. "Elaine, I'm so glad you could make it." She turned to Maya with a vague smile. "The music is lovely, dear. A perfect touch for the evening." "Your pianist is quite talented," Professor Chen said. "Where did you find her?" Mrs. Wong blinked as if seeing Maya for the first time. "Oh, she came with the venue, I believe. A last-minute arrangement." She waved her hand dismissively. "Come, let me introduce you to my husband. He's been wanting to discuss that donation to the music department." As they walked away, Professor Chen glanced back at Maya with a thoughtful expression. Maya returned to the piano, her fingers trembling slightly as she began to play again. A professor from the conservatory was here, listening to her play. What were the chances? The next hour passed in a blur. Maya played automatically, her mind racing. Should she say something to the professor? Mention the scholarship? The very thought made her stomach tighten with anxiety. Who was she to approach someone like that? At 9 o'clock, Mr. Lee clinked a spoon against a glass, calling for attention. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to celebrate Mrs. Wong's birthday. Before we bring out the cake, we have a special musical performance. All eyes turned to Maya. The room fell silent, expectant. This was not background music anymore. This was a performance. She took a deep breath, thinking of her grandmother, of all the hours they had spent at the piano together, of the joy music had once brought her. She began to play Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor. A bold choice, technically challenging, emotionally powerful. It was her grandmother's favorite piece, one they had worked on together for months before she could play it properly. Maya hadn't attempted it in years, but as her fingers found the opening chords, something inside her awakened. The music built from a whisper to a roar, demanding attention, filling the small cafe with sound. Maya forgot about the watching eyes, forgot about her nervousness, forgot about everything except the music flowing through her. Her body swayed with the rhythm, her face transformed by concentration and passion. When she reached the thunderous climax, her fingers flying across the keys, several guests gasped audibly. In that moment, Maya wasn't a waitress playing piano on the side. She was a musician, speaking through her instrument, telling her story through Rachmaninoff's notes. The final chords resonated through the room, hanging in the air for a heartbeat, before the crowd erupted in applause. Maya looked up, startled by the response. Every face was turned toward her, expressions ranging from surprise to admiration. Mrs. Wong was clapping enthusiastically, her earlier dismissiveness replaced by genuine appreciation, and Professor Chen was watching her with an intensity that made Maya's cheeks flush. As the applause continued, Mr. Lee appeared at her side, beaming with pride as if he'd discovered her talent himself. "They love you," he whispered. "Play something else." Maya nodded, caught up in the moment. She launched into Chopin's Fantaisie Impromptu, another challenging piece, but one that showcased a different side of her abilities. Lightness, delicacy, speed. Her fingers danced across the keys, the notes cascading like water. She smiled as she played, unable to contain the joy that had been buried for so long. When she finished, the applause was even louder. Someone shouted, "Brava!" from the back of the room. Maya stood and gave a small, awkward bow, unused to such attention. As guests returned to their conversations, now buzzing with talk of the unexpected performance, Professor Chen approached the piano again. "That was extraordinary," she said quietly. "Where did you study?" Maya hesitated, embarrassed by the truth. "I didn't, not formally. My grandmother taught me until I was 12. After she died," she shrugged. "I practiced when I could." Professor Chen's eyebrows rose. "You're self-taught? Since age 12? I had some books, and I listened to recordings." Maya felt her cheeks grow warm under the professor's scrutiny. "I know my technique isn't proper. Your technique needs refinement," Professor Chen interrupted. "But your musicality is remarkable. You play with genuine emotion, something that can't be taught." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. "The conservatory is holding auditions for our scholarship program next month. You should apply." Maya stared at the card, hardly daring to believe what was happening. I don't know if You're working full-time?" the professor asked. Maya nodded. "And helping with my sister. She's 16. The scholarship includes a stipend for living expenses," Professor Chen said. "It's designed for students who wouldn't otherwise have access to music education." She placed the card on the piano. "Think about it. Talent like yours shouldn't go undeveloped." Before Maya could respond, the professor was called away by another guest. Maya picked up the card, running her thumb over the embossed letters. Professor Elaine Chen, Director of Piano Studies. A direct contact to the conservatory she'd passed so many times, never imagining she could enter its doors as a student. The rest of the evening passed in a daze. Maya played more pieces, received more compliments, even posed for photos with Mrs. Wong. Guests who had barely noticed her earlier now stopped to praise her playing, asking where they could hear her perform again. Mr. Lee caught her during a break, his face flushed with excitement. "The Wongs want to know if you can play at their daughter's engagement party next month. They'll pay double what we paid Antonio." Maya blinked in surprise. "They want to hire me?" "Yes." "And Mrs. Chen asked if you would be available for a faculty reception at the conservatory." He shook his head in wonder. My waitress playing at the conservatory. Who would have thought? Who indeed? Maya wondered, her fingers closing around the business card in her pocket. 24 hours ago, she had been just a waitress, invisible to the very people now asking for her contact information. Now, suddenly, possibilities were opening before her, doors she had stopped believing existed. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Maya played one final piece, a gentle Chopin nocturne that her grandmother had taught her first. It felt right somehow to end where her journey had begun. Professor Chen stopped on her way out, listening until the final notes faded away. "The application deadline is 2 weeks from Friday," she said. "I hope to see your submission." Maya nodded, unable to find words for the mixture of hope and terror swirling inside her. Could she really do this? Dare to step beyond the life she had accepted? As the last guest departed and the staff began cleaning up, Maya remained at the piano, her fingers resting lightly on the keys that had changed everything in a single evening. Whatever happened next, she had been seen, really seen, for the first time in years, and that, she realized, was already a kind of freedom. The week following the Wong party changed everything. Word spread quickly about the waitress with extraordinary piano skills. Regular customers who had never noticed Maya before now greeted her by name, sometimes requesting songs during quiet afternoon hours. Mr. Lee, sensing a business opportunity, moved the piano to a more prominent spot and put up a small sign, "Live piano music, evenings and weekends." "I can't pay you what the Wongs did," he told Maya, "but I can offer an extra $1 per hour when you play, plus whatever tips people leave." It wasn't much, but the opportunity to play regularly on a real piano was worth more than money to Maya. She agreed immediately. Even Ricky treated her differently, watching with newfound respect when she played between serving tables. "You know," he said during a break, "my cousin's getting married next month. They were going to use a DJ, but maybe, if you're interested." Requests like this came daily now. The businessman, Thomas, asked if she would consider playing at his company's holiday party. A retired couple who visited the cafe every Sunday morning wanted to hire her for their 50th anniversary celebration. Maya accepted some offers and politely declined others, trying to balance her new opportunities with her existing responsibilities. Her mother, initially skeptical about this sudden change in direction, softened after seeing Maya play for cafe customers. "You sound just like your grandmother," she said quietly, pride and old grief mingling in her voice. "She would be so happy to see you at the piano again." But the most significant change was in Maya herself. She stood straighter now, made eye contact more easily, spoke with a confidence that had been buried beneath years of practiced invisibility. Playing again had awakened something in her, not just music but a sense of her own worth. Lily noticed it too. "You're different," she observed one evening as Maya practiced on their old keyboard. "Happier," Maya smiled. "I guess I am." "So are you going to apply for that scholarship?" Lily asked, picking up Professor Chen's business card from beside the keyboard. "The deadline's next week." The question brought a familiar knot of anxiety to Maya's stomach. Despite her recent success, the conservatory still seemed like another world, one she wasn't sure she belonged in. "I don't know," she admitted. "The competition will be fierce. Kids who've had proper training their whole lives, so none of them play like you do." Lily sat beside her on the bench. "I've seen how people watch you when you play. Like they can't believe what they're hearing. That's just because they weren't expecting anything from a waitress." "No," Lily insisted. "It's because you play with your heart. That professor lady saw it too. That's why she gave you her card." Maya sighed, running her fingers lightly over the keys. "Even if I got in, and that's a big if, how would we manage? The scholarship might cover my expenses, but what about you and Mom? My cafe paycheck helps with rent, groceries. We'd figure it out," Lily said with the simple confidence of youth. "Mom's been talking about picking up extra shifts anyway, and I could get a weekend job. You need to focus on school, and you need to stop using us as an excuse." Lily's voice was gentle but firm. "You've been taking care of everyone else for years. Maybe it's time someone took care of you." The words lingered with Maya long after Lily had gone to bed. Was her family responsibility really just an excuse? A safe reason to avoid taking risks? The thought was uncomfortable but rang with truth. The next morning, Maya arrived at the cafe earlier than usual. The application for the conservatory scholarship required a video submission of 2 contrasting pieces. With Mr. Lee's permission, she planned to record herself on the cafe piano before opening hours. She had chosen Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor, the piece that had so impressed the party guests, and a Bach invention that showcased a different kind of technical skill. Neither was perfect. She knew her lack of formal training showed in places, but they represented the best she could do with what she had. Ricky had offered to help with the recording, bringing his teenage daughter's smartphone tripod and setting it up carefully beside the piano. "Just pretend I'm not here," he said, adjusting the phone's position. "Play like you did at the party." Maya nodded, taking a deep breath to steady her nerves. It was one thing to play for cafe customers who expected nothing. It was another to record a performance that would be judged by professionals. What if they laughed at her efforts? What if they saw only the flaws in her technique, the gaps in her training? "You've got this," Ricky encouraged, seeing her hesitation. "Remember, you're the same person who got a standing ovation from those fancy party people." With a nod, Maya positioned her hands over the keys. She closed her eyes briefly, centering herself, then began to play. The Rachmaninoff filled the empty cafe, powerful and emotional. She lost herself in the music, forgetting the recording, forgetting her fears. When the final chord faded, she glanced up to find not just Ricky watching, but Mr. Lee and 2 early arriving staff members standing by the door, listening in silence. Mr. Lee cleared his throat. "Well, the conservatory would be crazy not to accept you." The Bach piece went equally well. Maya felt a strange calm settle over her as she played the intricate counterpoint. Whatever happened with the application, she had rediscovered part of herself that had been lost for too long. That alone was worth celebrating. After the recording, as staff prepared for opening, Maya retreated to the back office to complete the online application. The questions were straightforward until she reached the section on musical education and experience. Previous training. Adhering or years of formal study. Latest recent performances. Maya hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The truth seemed inadequate, almost embarrassing. But lying would be worse. They would see through it immediately. Previous training. Self-taught after age 12. Initial instruction from grandmother, former orchestra musician. Years of formal study, 5 years, ages 7 to 12. Recent performances, wedding party at Sunshine Cafe, regular performances at same location. She paused at the personal statement section, the blank space intimidating. How could she explain her journey in just a few paragraphs? After several false starts, she wrote from the heart. "Music has been my companion since childhood, though circumstances forced us apart for many years. My grandmother gave me 5 years of proper instruction before she passed away. After that, financial reality meant putting dreams aside, but never completely abandoning them. I continued learning through books, recordings, and practicing on an incomplete keyboard when possible. I know my technique shows gaps in formal training. What I offer instead is genuine passion and a commitment to learning. Music speaks through me in ways words cannot. Given the opportunity, I will work tirelessly to refine my skills and make up for lost time. Playing piano isn't just something I do, it's who I am, even when circumstances forced me to be someone else." Maya read over her words, feeling vulnerable but honest. With a deep breath, she attached the video files and submitted the application. It was done. Now came the hardest part: waiting. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of cafe shifts, piano playing, and nervous anticipation. Maya checked her email obsessively, jumping whenever her phone buzzed with notifications. Professor Chen had mentioned that applicants selected for live auditions would be notified within 10 days. As the 10th day approached with no word, Maya's hope began to fade. She threw herself into work, playing with extra intensity during her evening sets at the cafe, as if to prove to herself that it didn't matter, that playing here was enough. On the 11th day, as Maya wiped down tables before opening, her phone chimed with an email notification. She nearly dropped the cleaning cloth as she saw the sender: Admissions Office, Metropolitan Conservatory of Music. With trembling fingers, she opened the message. "Dear Ms. Santos, we are pleased to invite you to a live audition for the Community Talent Scholarship Program. Your video submission demonstrated remarkable musicality and natural ability that our committee found compelling. The live audition will take place on Thursday, May 12th at 2 p.m. in Recital Hall B. Please prepare. Maya read the email 3 times, hardly believing the words. They wanted to hear her play. They had seen something in her rough, self-taught performance worth pursuing. Good news? Mr. Lee asked, noticing her stunned expression. I got an audition, she whispered. They want to hear me play in person. His face broke into a genuine smile. Of course they do. When is it? Next Thursday at 2. You'll need the day off, he said immediately. Take Wednesday too to practice. Maya blinked in surprise. Are you sure? Thursday is usually busy. We'll manage. He waved away her concern. This is more important. The generosity of the gesture brought unexpected tears to her eyes. Thank you. Word of Maya's audition spread quickly among the cafe staff and regular customers. Everyone, it seemed, had advice or encouragement to offer. Wear something blue, the elderly tea-drinking woman suggested. It's a confident color. My sister teaches at a university, Thomas the businessman said. She says to arrive at least 30 minutes early. Makes a good impression. Even Ricky's cooking friend offered to make her a lucky breakfast the morning of the audition. The support was overwhelming and touching. These people, many of whom hadn't known her name 2 weeks ago, were now invested in her success. The invisible waitress had become someone they saw, someone they believed in. At home, Lily helped Maya select an outfit, a simple navy dress borrowed from a neighbor, paired with their mother's one good pair of black shoes. They were slightly too large, but thick socks solved that problem. You're going to amaze them, Lily said confidently as Maya tried on the outfit. Just like you amazed everyone at the cafe. Maya wished she shared her sister's certainty. As the audition day approached, her doubts grew louder. The conservatory was a prestigious institution. Its students went on to perform with symphonies, to teach at universities, to record albums. What place did a self-taught waitress have among such talent? The night before the audition, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay awake, mentally playing through her pieces, imagining the recital hall, the judges, all the ways she might fail. Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Lily. In the dim light of their small living room, she sat at the old keyboard, plugging in headphones so she wouldn't disturb the household. The familiar feel of the keys, even on this inadequate instrument, brought some comfort. This was where she belonged, at a piano, any piano. Whether in a grand recital hall or a small cafe or their cramped apartment, the music remained the same. It was still her voice, her heart. With that thought, a strange calm settled over her. Tomorrow would bring what it would bring. She had already won something precious, the rediscovery of herself, the courage to be seen. Whatever the judges decided, they couldn't take that away. Maya played softly into the night, not practicing her audition pieces but improvising gently, letting the music express what words couldn't. Gratitude for second chances, for family who believed in her, for strangers who became supporters, for the unlikely path that had led her here. When she finally returned to bed, sleep came easily. Tomorrow she would play for the conservatory judges, but tonight she played for herself. And somehow that made all the difference. The morning of the audition dawned bright and clear. Maya woke before her alarm, her stomach fluttering with a mixture of excitement and terror. Today was the day. After years of believing her musical dreams were behind her, she would play on a real concert piano in a real recital hall, for people who might open doors she'd thought forever closed. Her mother had swapped shifts to be home that morning, a rare occurrence that underscored the importance of the day. She stood in the kitchen doorway, watching as Maya picked at her breakfast. You should eat, she said gently. You'll need your strength. Maya nodded, taking another bite of toast without tasting it. I'm just nervous. Your grandmother was the same before performances. Her mother's eyes softened with memory. She couldn't eat, couldn't sit still. But the moment she touched the piano, everything changed. The nervousness became something else. Energy, passion. She reached across the table and squeezed Maya's hand. You're more like her than you know. The comparison brought unexpected tears to Maya's eyes. Her grandmother had been her hero, talented, confident, filled with music. To think that her mother saw that same spark in her was both comforting and overwhelming. What if I'm not good enough? The question that had haunted her for weeks finally escaped. What if I'm wasting everyone's time? Yours, the judge's, my own. Maya, her mother's voice was firm. Playing that piano makes you happy. I've seen the change in you these past weeks. Even if nothing comes from today's audition, finding that joy again could never be a waste of time." The simple wisdom of those words stayed with Maya as she dressed in the borrowed navy dress, as Lily helped pin her hair back neatly, as her mother pressed a small gold pin into her hand, her grandmother's treble clef brooch, worn for good luck at every performance. "She would want you to have it today," her mother said. The journey to the conservatory took nearly an hour, a bus ride followed by a short walk. Maya had passed the imposing stone building countless times, but today, she would walk through its doors. The thought made her palms sweat. As Thomas had suggested, she arrived 30 minutes early, clutching a folder containing her sheet music and the audition invitation. The security guard at the entrance checked her name against a list, then pointed her toward Recital Hall B. "Down that hallway, third door on the right," he said. "There's a waiting area where you can sit until they call you." Maya thanked him and walked slowly down the corridor, taking in her surroundings. The walls were lined with photographs of past students, many now famous musicians. Display cases held programs from notable performances, awards, memorabilia. History and excellence surrounded her, intimidating yet inspiring. The waiting area outside Recital Hall B held several hard plastic chairs and a water cooler. 2 other students already sat there, a young man with a violin case and a woman about Maya's age flipping through sheet music. Both wore formal clothes and exuded a confidence that made Maya's insecurities flare up again. She took a seat, smoothing her borrowed dress. The woman glanced up and gave a tight smile. "First time auditioning here?" she asked. Maya nodded. "Is it that obvious? You have that deer in headlights look." The woman's smile softened. "I had it too my first time. I'm Rita, by the way." "Maya." She glanced at Rita's professional-looking portfolio. "Have you auditioned before?" "3 times, Rita sighed. "I'm hoping the 4th time's the charm." "This scholarship is incredibly competitive." Maya's heart sank. "3 times? And you weren't accepted?" "I made it to the final round last year, but only 1 or 2 students get the full scholarship." Rita shrugged. "Most of us have been playing since we were tiny, had the best teachers, attended music camps every summer." "What about you?" Maya hesitated, suddenly embarrassed by her lack of credentials. "I'm mostly self-taught." Rita's eyebrows shot up. "Self-taught? And you got an audition? That's actually amazing. They must have heard something special in your submission." Before Maya could respond, the door to the recital hall opened. A stern-looking man with a clipboard emerged. "Rita Chen, you're up next." Rita gathered her things, taking a deep breath. "Wish me luck," she whispered to Maya. "Good luck," Maya replied, watching as Rita disappeared into the hall. The door closed behind her, leaving Maya alone with the violin player who was too focused on his sheet music to make conversation. 20 minutes passed. Maya could hear faint piano music through the door. Rita's audition piece played with technical precision. She sounded flawless to Maya's ears, making her own insecurities grow. If someone that skilled had been rejected 3 times, what chance did she have? The door opened again. Rita emerged looking relieved but tense. "How did it go?" Maya asked. "Better than last year, I think." Rita gathered her belongings. "They ask questions after you play, about your background, your goals. Be prepared for that." She gave Maya an encouraging smile. "Good luck. I hope we both make it." As Rita left, the man with the clipboard consulted his list. "Maya Santos?" Maya stood, her legs suddenly feeling weak. "That's me. Come in. The panel is ready for you." She followed him into Recital Hall B, a space both smaller and larger than she'd imagined. Smaller in dimensions. It wasn't the vast concert hall she'd feared, but larger in impact. The room was designed for perfect acoustics, with wood-paneled walls and a raised stage area. In the center sat a gleaming grand piano, its lid fully open, bathed in soft spotlight. Seated at a table facing the piano were 3 people: Professor Chen, whom Maya recognized from the party, an older man with wire-rimmed glasses, and a younger woman with bright red hair. All 3 looked up as she entered. "Ms. Santos," Professor Chen nodded in greeting. "Thank you for coming. Please introduce yourself and tell us what you'll be playing today." Maya approached the piano, her heart hammering so loudly she was sure they could hear it. She touched her grandmother's pin for courage. "My name is Maya Santos. I'll be playing Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor, Opus 23, No. 5, followed by Bach's Invention No. 13 in a minor." The red-haired woman made a note on her paper. Ambitious choices. Please begin when you're ready. Maya sat at the bench, adjusting its height. The piano keys gleamed before her, perfectly regulated, responsive in a way her cafe piano could never be. She placed her hands in position, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first notes of the Rachmaninoff filled the hall, rich and resonant in the acoustic space. Maya was transported, as she always was when playing, to a place where nervousness couldn't follow. Here in the music, she knew exactly who she was and what she was meant to do. The piece built in intensity, her fingers finding strength and precision she hadn't known she possessed. The magnificent piano responded to her touch, allowing subtleties of expression that her previous instruments couldn't match. She leaned into the music, giving it everything she had. All her years of working in silence, of dreams deferred, of invisible service. When the final triumphant chords of the Rachmaninoff faded, Maya moved seamlessly into the Bach, controlled, intricate, a complete contrast to the emotional Russian piece. Where Rachmaninoff was heart, Bach was mind, requiring absolute precision and clarity of thought. She focused intently, weaving the counterpoint lines together with delicate balance. As the final notes hung in the air, Maya realized she'd been holding her breath. She exhaled slowly, hands resting in her lap, waiting. The silence stretched for several seconds before Professor Chen spoke. "Thank you, Miss Santos. That was quite remarkable." She glanced at her colleagues, who nodded in agreement. "We have some questions for you." The older man consulted his notes. "Your application mentioned you're largely self-taught since age 12. Could you tell us more about your musical journey?" Maya swallowed hard. This was the part she dreaded, admitting how little formal training she'd had compared to applicants like Rita. "My grandmother was a violinist with the city orchestra before I was born. She taught me piano from age 7 until she passed away when I was 12. After that," she paused, gathering courage. "After that, we couldn't afford lessons or even a proper piano. I practiced when I could on a keyboard missing 2 keys. I studied theory from library books and listened to recordings to learn interpretation." "And you work full-time?" the red-haired woman asked. "Yes, I'm a waitress at Sunshine Cafe. I've been working there since high school." Professor Chen leaned forward. "What made you apply for this scholarship after all these years?" The question struck at the heart of Maya's journey. "I stopped believing it was possible," she admitted. "I became the person others expected me to be, just a waitress, nothing more. But recently I had a chance to play again for an audience." "You were there, Professor Chen?" Professor Chen nodded. "The Wong party. Yes, that night reminded me of who I really am." Maya touched the treble clef pin at her collar. "My grandmother always said music isn't just something you do, it's something you are. I buried that part of myself for years, but it never went away." The panel exchanged glances, something unreadable passing between them. "One final question," the older man said. "If accepted into our program, how would you address the gaps in your technical training?" "With everything I have," Maya answered simply. "I know I'm behind. I know there are fundamentals I've missed, habits I've developed without proper guidance. But I'm ready to work harder than anyone. Music is my second chance, and I won't waste it." Professor Chen made a final note, then looked up with a small smile. "Thank you, Ms. Santos. That will be all for today. We'll be in touch within 2 weeks regarding our decision." Maya nodded, standing on shaky legs. "Thank you for the opportunity." She left the recital hall in a daze, barely registering the next nervous applicant waiting outside. Had she done enough? Said enough? The performance felt good, better than she'd expected on such a responsive instrument. But was good enough for a prestigious institution like the conservatory? Outside, the afternoon sun warmed her face as she walked to the bus stop. Whatever happened next, she had done something brave today. She had played her heart out in that hall, had spoken her truth to the panel. No one could take that accomplishment away from her. The next 2 weeks were the longest of Maya's life. She returned to her shifts at the cafe, playing evening piano sets that now attracted small crowds of regulars. Mr. Lee had even printed proper programs listing the pieces she would play each night, proudly distributing them to customers. "You're becoming our claim to fame," he joked, though his pride was genuine. "Soon you'll be too important to work here." Maya shook her head. "This place gave me back my music. I won't forget that." On the 10th day after her audition, Maya was wiping down tables when the cafe door opened, and Professor Chen walked in. Maya froze, cloth in hand, her heart suddenly racing. "Professor Chen," she managed. "Welcome to Sunshine Cafe," the professor smiled. "I hope I'm not interrupting your work." "No, not at all." Maya,